Hello again, welcome back to the channel. In this short video I want to talk to you about filters and my philosophy and thoughts on different types of filter systems. Over the years I've actually had quite a lot of different filters. They've usually been the sort of 4-inch square or rectangular ones, typically Lee filters or Kase, and over time probably other manufacturers as well. I've gone away from using those systems because several reasons really, and I'll get on to the system I'm now using, but the holders, the filter holders, are quite cumbersome. When you put them on the lens becomes quite vulnerable. They can knock off. Some of the new ones, the new Lee filters and various others, actually latch on in a much more positive way. But I find that the whole size of them and the size of the filters that go in them a bit of an issue. I don't use graduated filters. I'd rather bracket a shot and blend it, the exposures actually in post-processing, than actually try to get it perfectly right in the camera. And the other downside to me of using graduated filters is the issue that the horizon needs to be pretty well flat, and nothing needs to cross from below the horizon to above the horizon like a mountain or something, otherwise you're actually darkening something you might not want darkened. And I prefer to have the control over that actually in post-processing, either in Lightroom or in Photoshop. So given that I now have not used graduated filters for probably about a year to 18 months, I have got away from the idea of having cumbersome and large filter systems. And basically what I need in a filter is I need a polarizer. There are times that polarizers, there isn't any post-processing that can create the effect a polarizer can do. So that's my number one most important filter, is a polarizer. And then moving on from a polarizer, the next filters that I use are neutral density filters, so that I can actually slow down motion or create a long time frame for the actual shot to be taken in, to, for instance, stretch the sea or stretch the clouds out, or to just generally make a waterfall more flowing, white, vertical lines, that sort of thing. And also patterns in water and the sea, when the sea's receding and the foam in the sea's receding around rocks, you get some quite interesting patterns when you have exposures that can be anything from a second up to sort of 15-20 seconds. So my more usual sort of filter combinations is a single polarizer and then 3 or 4 different ND filters. Now, the ND filters I had from Lee and the polarizer, because of the size of the fitting they have to go in, the filters themselves are very large. As a result, they're very expensive. Typically a 10-stop Lee big stopper is somewhere in the region of, I think, about £180, and the polarizers are £200. And that's a lot of money to be paying for something. When you've got several of them, you're rapidly getting into spending the best part of £500 to £1,000. So I looked around at the different systems that were on the market, and I found this system, which is the Kase magnetic system. And I have 4 filters inside this little case that comes with the filters in when you buy it. And in here I've got a 10-stop, a 6-stop, and a 2-stop. I think it's a 2-stop, yeah. And also a polarizer. Now, being magnetic, the advantage of these is that you just have a single adapter on the front of the lens. Luckily, in the case of a couple of my lenses, they are 82mm anyway, so there is no need to stop up and stop down on my 2 G Master zooms. The 16 to 35 is an 82mm thread, and the 24 to 70 that I've got here is also an 82mm thread. So I don't know if you can see that. It's an incredibly thin, hardly noticeable. In fact, I'll try and take it off just to show you how little and thin it is. That is the magnetic part that the filters connect to. On my 100 to 400, I had to put an adapter to get up to 82mm from the, I think it's 72mm that the 100 to 400 thread size is. So all of my cameras, or sorry, all my lenses, I can put this filter system on. And the thing I like most about it is that, being magnetic, they just drop into place. They won't drop off. Even if you bang the camera quite hard, it won't actually fall off. So you can stack them as well, because each one can stack on top of the other, so you're not limited. You can put the polarizer on first, last, or whichever order you want to put them on in. And because they're magnetic, they just rotate quite happily, so you can achieve the desired level of polarization very easily. And once they're on, they're quite easy to obviously take off. It just clips off in your hand like that. And as you've probably seen from some of my videos, you often see this little case clipped onto my sort of collar here on the side of my jacket, so that I've got the filters very close at hand. I don't need to reach down into my camera case to get it, and I can just switch filters over quickly. And I find that really very helpful. Having said all of that, there is one downside to this filter system, which I've experienced a couple of times. Wind isn't a problem. Wind will not blow them off. The magnetic attachment's more than adequate to stop any degree of wind taking off, causing them to come away from the lens. But the one thing that can cause it to come across or off is if you accidentally catch the filters when you're moving around, for instance, you can easily knock them off. And if they fall to the floor, that's a bad thing. In Norway, I was on some rocks down by the coast photographing some incoming waves, and I actually accidentally caught the whole filter stack. I think there were two at least, possibly three filters on the front, and they all rolled down the hill. It wasn't a flat piece of rock, and dropped onto another piece of rock, and then went down and fell into a rock pool. We're about 18 inches down in the water, and I had to scrabble down before the waves came in and get that back. I was amazed though, because when I did actually get it back, there was no marks on it, no evidence of any damage. They're the Wolverine series, I believe, which means they're actually some sort of toughened material, but in essence they're pretty indestructible, and that proved it to me. However, that is a downside. You can catch them. So my recommendation is, if you go with this sort of filter system, and particularly if you've got this tiny case close at hand, whenever you move the camera, for whatever reason, if you're going to relocate it on the tripod, don't leave the filters on the front of the camera, because they'll quite likely get knocked off and damaged, or you might lose them if you're on the edge of something quite sheer. They're gone, and that's it. Or deep water for that matter. So that's the only downside I've found. There are a couple of other plus sides as well, because Kase quite happily give you a magnetic lens cap, and they're all the same size because the filter system is an 82mm filter system. So you've got a nice, easy, convenient lens cap which works. Nothing special, but it just does the job. The other thing that I found out about these, and it's quite spectacular to see it happen, is I don't know what they've coated these filters with, but if water gets on them, it will just literally drop off. And if you wash them under the tap, which I regularly do when they get sea spray on, you can just put a bit of something like washing up liquid on both sides, rub it around gently with your finger, and then just hold it underneath the tap with the water going over both sides. And the washing up liquid will actually take all the grease and slime and other mess away, and then the whole thing just drops away, and there's not any water on the lenses afterwards. And that's really quite handy, because it means they're easy to keep very, very clean. And that is a good plus side from my point of view. Many other filters that I've used over the years, even if you use that technique of actually putting them under running hot water with washing up liquid, they don't come off clean. You have to dry them off, and in doing that you can often leave smears on them. Anyway, not wanting to bore you any longer with this, that's just my general thoughts on filtering, and also the system that I use. And I'm not in any way sponsored, or I don't get anything from Kase for saying this. This is a good product. I like it. I'm happy with it. And because these filters are smaller than the ones that go in the 100mm type frames or above, the 150 size frames, they're relatively cheap. I think this whole set of 4 filters and the relevant holders and also the lens caps cost me about £420, something like that, which, although is quite an expense in its own right, I think it compares very favourably with some of the Lee filter systems and some of the Polar Pros, which are even more expensive. Anyway, I hope you found that interesting. It's only a brief video, as I said, and it's just some more gear and my thoughts on some more gear. So I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you again on the next video. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, please give it the thumbs up, and please also subscribe so that you get notified when I upload new videos.